10 real front-end engineer interview questions from a Quest2Offer mock interview. Pause on each one, think how you'd answer. Then I'll show you how. Question 1. What is the browser's critical rendering path and why does it decide your load speed? The browser builds the DOM and the CS-SOM, combines them into a render tree, then runs layout, paint, and composite. CSS is render blocking. Nothing paints until the CS-SOM is ready, and a synchronous script in the head blocks parsing. So shrink the critical bytes, inline critical CSS, defer the rest, and cut every blocking request on the path. Question 2. In the JavaScript event loop, what's the difference between microtasks and macrotasks? Macrotasks are things like timers and events. One runs per loop turn. Microtasks are promises and queue microtask. The key rule: after each macrotask, the engine drains the entire microtask queue before it renders. So a promise resolves before the next set timeout 0, and if you flood microtasks, you starve rendering and freeze the UI. Question 3. What actually happens when a React component re-renders after a state change? A state change marks the component dirty, and React reruns its render to build a new element tree. Reconciliation diffs it against the previous tree, and only the nodes that actually changed touch the real DOM. Children re-render too, unless you memoize with stable props. And keys let React match list items across renders instead of rebuilding them. A re-render is not a DOM update. Question 4. Optimizing a React app. Which performance metrics do you prioritize and why? Prioritize the 3 core web vitals: LCP, largest contentful paint for perceived load, aim under 2.5 seconds; INP, interaction to next paint, for responsiveness, it replaced FID in 2024, and CLS, cumulative layout shift, for visual stability; reserve space for images and ads. Underneath all 3, bundle size and main thread work. Optimize what users feel, not a vanity lighthouse score. Question 5. 2 CSS rules target the same element with different values. How does the browser decide which one wins? Specificity wins first. An inline style beats an ID, which beats a class or attribute, which beats an element selector. If specificity ties, the later rule in source order wins. Important overrides normal rules, but use it sparingly. It breaks the cascade. And modern CSS gives you cascade layers to order your intent cleanly, so you can stop reaching for important. Quick pause. These questions come from Quest2Offer's AI mock interview, technical or FANG format. The AI asks questions for your exact role, you answer in writing, and you get a breakdown of your weak spots. Try it free at quest2offer.ai. Then back to the questions. Question 6. Your JavaScript bundle is huge and slows the first load. How do you cut it without losing features? Split at the root level with dynamic import and React Lazy plus suspense, so each page loads its own chunk. Pull heavy, rarely used widgets, editors, charts, into on-demand chunks. Tree shake, swap bloated dependencies like moment for date fins, and verify with a bundle analyzer. Then prefetch the next likely route so it still feels instant. Ship only what the first screen needs. Question 7. Web workers versus service workers. When do you reach for each? A web worker runs CPU work off the main thread, parsing heavy computation, so the UI stays smooth. A service worker is a network proxy between your app and the server, caching, offline, and push. Web workers are per page and short-lived. Service workers persist and intercept requests. Neither touches the DOM. They message back to the main thread. They solve opposite problems. Compute versus network. Question 8. How do you make a complex front-end accessible? And what's the first rule of ARIA? Start with semantic HTML. A real button, nav, and label give you accessibility and keyboard support for free. The first rule of ARIA. Don't use ARIA if a native element already does the job. Manage focus, visible focus rings, trap it in modals, restore it on close, and test with a real screen reader and axe, not just by eye. It's a legal and UX baseline, and semantic markup helps SEO too. Question 9. How would you design a scalable component library for a large organization? Build on design tokens, color, spacing, type, as the single source of truth and make them themable. Keep an unstyled, composable core with accessibility baked in. Version it, document it in Storybook, and ship code mods for breaking changes. And make every export tree shakeable, so apps only ship what they import. A shared library only scales if it's consistent, accessible, and versioned. Question 10. How do you share state across micro-frontends without tightly coupling them? Keep most state local and share only what's truly cross-app. Communicate through events, a small pub sub, or the URL, not shared imports. Define a thin, typed contract instead of a global store everyone reaches into. And isolate failures, so one micro-frontend crashing doesn't take down the shell. The whole point is independent deploys. A shared store quietly recouples everything. That's all 10. How many did you get? Tell me in the comments. Then like, subscribe, and try a real mock interview at Quest2Offer.ai. Good luck on your next call.